In the world of the bold and the beautiful, conflict rarely arrives fully formed. It begins as hesitation, as a glance held for a moment too long, as a truth postponed because revealing it feels more dangerous than hiding it. The updated spoilers for Friday, January 23, 2026, suggest that the coming episode will not rely on explosive confrontations alone, but on the quieter, more suffocating kind of tension that builds when people attempt to outrun their own instincts. At the center of this emotional pressure cooker are three parallel struggles: a promise made under emotional strain, a truth deliberately avoided, and a passion that refuses to remain buried no matter how carefully it is denied. Elektra Forrester once again finds herself confronting a fear she would rather not name. Her renewed focus on Will Spencer is not driven by evidence of betrayal but by the deeper terror of emotional displacement. The moment Will casually offers to share his chicken with Dylan, Elektra's anxiety sharpens into suspicion. To an outside observer, the gesture is trivial, even kind, yet for Elektra it carries symbolic weight. It suggests familiarity, comfort, and the possibility of emotional access that Elektra believes belongs solely to her. Her reaction is less about the action itself and more about what it represents. The sense that her place in Will's world is not as secure as she needs it to be. Elektra's confrontation with Dylan is therefore not an accusation but a boundary test. She is asking, without explicitly saying so, whether Dylan understands her place, her role, and the limits Elektra believes must exist for the relationship to survive. This moment exposes Elektra's internal contradiction. She wants to appear confident and composed, yet her need to reassert control betrays vulnerability. The reminder she gives Dylan is framed as concern, but beneath it lies an unmistakable warning. Elektra is not merely protecting a relationship. She is defending her emotional identity, which has become increasingly intertwined with Will. Dylan, for her part, exists in a constant state of emotional imbalance. She is acutely aware that her current stability depends on generosity that is not guaranteed. Having a place to stay is more than a convenience. It is a lifeline, and Dylan knows how easily it could be withdrawn if she missteps. This awareness sharpens her self-scrutiny. She recognizes that her feelings toward Will are inappropriate, not because they are immoral, but because they are dangerous. Will represents safety, admiration, and an idealized form of kindness that Dylan has learned to associate with rescue. Seeing him as a hero is not romantic fantasy alone. It is a reflection of her desire for order in a life that has felt unsteady. Despite her best intentions, Dylan cannot fully control the physical manifestations of her attraction. She notices herself watching Will when she should not, lingering on his presence in ways that make her uncomfortable with herself. These moments are not acts of betrayal, but they are warning signs. Dylan is fighting an internal battle between gratitude and longing, between what she knows she should feel and what she cannot prevent herself from feeling. Her reassurance to Elektra is sincere, but sincerity does not negate temptation. When Dylan promises that nothing will happen between her and Will, she is not lying, she is hoping. This promise becomes the emotional pivot of the episode. Dylan insists that she does not want trouble, that she will do better, that she understands the stakes. Yet the very act of making such a promise suggests that she senses how fragile the situation already is. Promises in the bold and the beautiful are rarely neutral. They are often made precisely because the speaker fears they may not be able to keep them. Dylan's vow is less about Elektra's comfort and more about Dylan's need to believe she can still control her own impulses. While this interpersonal tension unfolds, another character is engaged in avoidance of a far more consequential kind. John Finnegan, known to most simply as Finn, heads to Il Giardino with a clear objective: to remain unseen by Sheila Carter Sharp. His attempt to avoid his biological mother is not born of hatred but of exhaustion. Finn has reached a point where every interaction with Sheila feels like standing on unstable ground, where one wrong word could trigger emotional aftershocks that ripple through multiple lives. Finn's reluctance to engage is intensified by Steffi's ongoing concerns about Deacon Sharp and Taylor Hayes. Steffi has already voiced her fears, framing the situation as one that carries serious emotional and psychological risk. Yet Finn does not want to be drawn into another moral reckoning involving Sheila, Deacon, and Taylor. His instinct is to preserve what little equilibrium he has managed to maintain. Avoidance, for Finn, feels like self-preservation. However, avoidance is rarely rewarded in this world. Finn's path inevitably crosses Sheila's, and the encounter immediately places him in an impossible position. In the weekly preview, Sheila expresses gratitude toward Taylor, crediting her with saving her marriage. This moment is deceptively calm. On the surface, it suggests growth, appreciation, and even humility on Sheila's part. Beneath it, however, lies a truth that Finn knows but cannot easily share. He understands the emotional reality between Taylor and Deacon, and this knowledge transforms Sheila's gratitude into a test of his integrity. Finn now faces a choice that defines his internal conflict. Telling Sheila the truth risks unleashing anger, betrayal, and potentially dangerous consequences. Remaining silent, however, makes him complicit in a lie that could grow more destructive with time. The assumption among those around him is that Sheila would react with explosive rage if she knew the truth. That assumption, more than Sheila's actual behavior, dictates their decision to keep her in the dark. Yet there is a quiet underestimation embedded in this logic. Sheila, for all her history of volatility, has shown signs of evolution. Whether that growth is genuine or temporary remains uncertain, but the refusal to give her the opportunity to respond differently denies her any chance at redemption. Finn senses this contradiction. He is torn between protecting those he loves and acknowledging that people are not static. The tragedy is that no one trusts Sheila enough to test the possibility of change. As Finn wrestles with this moral dilemma, the emotional gravity between Taylor and Deacon continues to intensify. Their connection has reached a point where denial feels dishonest. What began as mutual understanding has transformed into something more urgent, more physical, and more difficult to suppress. They can sense the inevitability of crossing a line they have both tried to respect. Passion, once acknowledged internally, becomes harder to restrain with each passing moment. The secrecy surrounding their feelings only heightens the intensity. Knowing that their truth is being hidden from Sheila adds a layer of guilt that paradoxically strengthens their bond. Shared secrets create intimacy, and intimacy fuels desire. At some point, restraint ceases to feel noble and begins to feel futile. Taylor and Deacon are approaching that threshold, where emotional honesty demands physical expression. This raises the central question that hangs over the episode. How long can the truth be hidden before the cost of concealment outweighs the risk of revelation? Those involved may believe they are protecting Sheila, but protection rooted in deception often becomes its own form of harm. When the truth eventually surfaces, as it always does in The Bold and the Beautiful, the betrayal will feel deeper precisely because it was prolonged. Elektra's jealousy, Dylan's promise, Finn's avoidance, and Sheila's untested growth are not isolated threads. They are variations of the same theme, the fear of loss and the belief that control can prevent it. Each character is attempting to manage emotional chaos through restriction, secrecy, or reassurance. Yet these strategies only delay confrontation, they do not eliminate it. If Elektra's instincts are correct, Dylan's feelings will not remain contained indefinitely. If Finn continues to avoid honesty, the fallout with Sheila will be harsher when it arrives. If Taylor and Deacon surrender to their passion, the truth will no longer be something that can be hidden. In every case, silence serves as a temporary shield that ultimately shatters. The looming danger is not simply who will be hurt, but how deeply trust will be damaged when those hurt realize how long they were excluded from the truth. People may justify their choices as acts of protection, but protection without consent becomes manipulation. And manipulation, no matter how well intended, breeds resentment. As Friday's episode approaches, the tension lies not in what will happen next, but in how long these characters can continue pretending that restraint is enough. In The Bold and the Beautiful, the most devastating moments rarely come from sudden explosions. They come from the slow realization that everyone saw the storm coming, and still chose to look away. In the long and turbulent history of The Bold and the Beautiful, betrayal has never been limited to romance. Some of the most devastating conflicts have emerged not from love triangles, but from power struggles between fathers and sons, from wounded pride disguised as principle, and from legacy wars that blur the line between personal hurt and corporate ambition. The latest revelations suggest that the next great battle will not be fought in boardrooms alone, but in the emotional ruins of the Forrester family itself, where loyalty is conditional and forgiveness is often withheld until it is too late. At the center of this brewing storm stands Ridge Forrester, a man who has spent his life balancing on the fragile boundary between heir and rebel. Ridge has always believed that Forrester Creations belongs to him not merely by blood, but by right of vision and control. Yet that certainty is now under threat, shaken by the very man who built the empire from nothing, Eric Forrester. What makes this confrontation particularly explosive is not just Eric's decision to collaborate with Katie Logan Spencer, but the fact that this partnership is being forged in secrecy, in defiance of Ridge's authority, and in response to Ridge's own ruthless choices. Ridge's harsh treatment of both Eric and Katie has planted the seeds of rebellion. By dismissing his father as obsolete and marginalizing Katie's creative contributions, Ridge believed he was asserting leadership. Instead, he created a vacuum, one that Eric and Katie have quietly filled together. Their collaboration is not an act of impulsive revenge, it is a calculated response to exclusion. Katie's new fashion house, Logan, is not merely a business venture. It is a declaration of independence. And Eric's role as its lead designer transforms it into something far more dangerous. A direct challenge to Forrester Creations itself. The secrecy surrounding this alliance intensifies its power. Eric and Katie know that revealing their partnership too soon would invite sabotage, emotional manipulation, and public humiliation. They also understand that Ridge and Brooke Logan Forrester would never see this move as neutral. To Ridge, this is not just business competition, it is personal betrayal. To Brooke, it is a fracture in a family structure she has spent years trying to hold together through compromise and endurance. Yet one person is not fooled by the illusion of peace, Donna Logan Forrester. Donna recognizes the trajectory of this conflict long before it reaches open war. She understands that when pride replaces dialogue, destruction follows. Her plea for Eric and Katie to avoid igniting World War III is not melodrama. It is a survival instinct shaped by decades of watching this family devour itself. Donna's suggestion that Eric return to Forrester Creations in a reduced, part-time capacity is meant as a compromise, a bridge back to stability. But for Eric, the proposal lands as an insult too deep to forgive. Eric Forrester is not merely a retired designer seeking relevance. He is the founder of Forrester Creations, the architect of its legacy, and the man whose name is etched into its very identity. Being pushed aside by his own son is not just professional rejection, it is existential erasure. Accepting a part-time role would mean accepting Ridge's version of history. One in which Eric's contributions are acknowledged but no longer essential. Eric refuses that narrative. His partnership with Katie is his way of rewriting the story, of reminding the world, and Ridge, that vision does not expire with age. For Katie, Eric represents more than talent. He is a lifeline. After years of being underestimated, overshadowed, and dismissed as secondary within the Forrester orbit, Katie sees in Eric a collaborator who values her instincts rather than tolerating them. Logan is not simply a brand, it is a reclamation of identity. With Eric at her side, Katie gains not only credibility but moral justification. She is no longer a rival acting out of resentment. She is a visionary standing shoulder to shoulder with the man who once defined the fashion dynasty. She now dares to challenge. Eric, in turn, believes that his role in Logan's launch will be pivotal. His name carries weight that money cannot buy, and he knows it. The irony is that by choosing this path, Eric is not abandoning his legacy, he is protecting it. In his mind, Forrester Creations has drifted from its founding spirit under Ridge's leadership. Logan becomes a vessel through which Eric can restore balance, artistry, and purpose, values he believes Ridge has sacrificed for dominance. The emotional cost of this decision, however, is steep. Eric understands that this collaboration will permanently alter his relationship with Ridge. He knows that his son will see it as an unforgivable act of defiance. Yet Eric believes that the rupture began the moment Ridge forced him into retirement. From Eric's perspective, the betrayal did not start with Logan. It started with Ridge's refusal to see his father as an equal. Ridge's reaction, according to upcoming revelations, will be explosive and deeply personal. Rather than approaching the situation with strategic detachment, Ridge is expected to lash out, driven by wounded pride and unresolved resentment. His anger will not be confined to business ethics or competitive concerns. He will feel humiliated, outmaneuvered, and exposed. The image he has cultivated as the undisputed leader of Forrester Creations will suddenly feel fragile. This is where Ridge's immaturity becomes most visible. Instead of acknowledging his role in pushing Eric away, Ridge is likely to frame himself as the victim. His sense of betrayal will override any capacity for self-reflection. He may accuse Eric of disloyalty while ignoring the fact that loyalty was never reciprocated. In doing so, Ridge risks transforming a business rivalry into an irreversible family schism. The possibility that Ridge might resort to the ultimate emotional weapon, reminding Eric that his biological father was Massimo Marone, adds a dark layer to this conflict. This revelation has always been a scar beneath the surface of Eric's identity. One that Ridge knows how to exploit. Using Massimo's name would not be an argument. It would be an act of emotional violence, intended to destabilize Eric's sense of belonging and legitimacy. The timing of this potential attack is especially dangerous, with R.J. Forrester recently mentioning the Marone legacy to Electra Forrester. The past is already creeping into the present. Old blood feuds have a way of resurfacing when new generations least expect them. What begins as a disagreement between Ridge and Eric could easily spill over into RJ's world, dragging Electra into a history she never asked to inherit. The consequences of reopening the Marone-Forrester rivalry would be far-reaching. RJ, still forming his identity within the family, could find himself questioning his place, his loyalty, and the meaning of legacy itself. Elektra, already navigating her own struggles with possession and insecurity, may be forced to confront the reality that the Forrester name carries not just privilege, but unresolved trauma, as Ridge and Eric move toward an inevitable face-to-face confrontation. The stakes extend far beyond fashion lines and corporate control. This is a battle over narrative. Who defines the past? Who controls the present? And who gets to shape the future? Ridge believes leadership means making hard decisions without apology. Eric believes leadership means honoring the foundation upon which everything was built. Neither man is entirely wrong, yet neither is willing to yield. The tragedy is that both are driven by the same desire, to matter. Ridge wants to prove he is more than Eric's successor. Eric wants to prove he is more than Ridge's predecessor. Their conflict is not about dominance alone. It is about relevance, respect, and the fear of being erased. As the confrontation looms, viewers are left with an unsettling question. How far will Ridge go to reclaim control? Will he sacrifice his relationship with his father entirely in the name of pride? Or will this crisis force him to confront the cost of his ambition? In the world of the bold and the beautiful, wars rarely end cleanly. They leave scars that echo through generations, shaping relationships long after the original battle has been forgotten. The coming clash between Ridge and Eric promises to be no exception. And when the dust settles, the most painful realization may not be who won or lost, but how easily love was replaced by power, and how quickly legacy became a weapon rather than a bond. So the question remains, not just for the characters, but for the audience as well. When father and son stand on opposite sides of history, whose vision truly deserves to survive?